Welcome to today's first NAREB podcast. My name is Kim Smith-Moore. I am currently the chapter board chair of the NAREB organization. Let's first start off with defining what NAREB is, what NAREB stands for. It's the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. And today I'm going to be facilitating and also taking part in today's panel discussion. A little bit about NAREB. NAREB was founded in 1947. It's an equal opportunity and civil rights advocacy organization for African American and real estate professionals, which includes brokerages, mortgage financing, appraising, land development, and home building. The purpose of NAREB is to enhance the economic improvement of its members and minority community. Let's dive right into the conversation, and I'd really like for you to meet our panelist for today's discussion. My first panelist to my right is Richelle Taylor, and Richelle is the Twin City founder of the Twin City NAREB chapter, and she's also a former board chair. She's also a broker with RE/MAX Results Simply Sold, Realty Group, and the owner of Professional Real Estate Consultants. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Kim.
Boss.
We also have Trent Bowman, and Trent Bowman was the former president of NAREB Twin Cities. Trent is also vice president, community impact manager with Bremer Bank Mortgage. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And last but not least, we have Cameron Perket. And Cameron is our current president of the Twin Cities NAREB chapter. Cameron is also U.S. Bank Mortgage branch manager. So welcome to today's conversation.
Thank you.
And I do want to add, in addition to these board members we have today, I'd like to mention the other board members that are a part of NAREB Twin City chapter. We have Jonette Cintron, we have Henry Rucker, we have Sharice Turner, we have Anna Smith, who is our secretary. We have George Grishon, who is vice chair. We have Lisa Carter, Lance Couch, Tiffany Phillips, who is our treasurer, and Rashida Shelton. So those are our other members of the board.
Shout out to the board. Nothing that we do is possible without all the collaborative efforts. So thank you so much to those that are not here to represent us today.
For sure.
Thank you. Well, let's get started with our conversation. I'm very excited about being here and very excited about being a part of NAREB. I took on this role probably a few months ago, early in January, as the chair. And I'll tell you that, if you understand NAREB, and you're going to hear a lot about the history of NAREB. You're going to hear about Black history, because Black history is important, especially nowadays when they're trying to take away our Black history, right? Mm-hmm. Black history is American history. So it's important that you know your history. Mm-hmm. And so we're here to bring you that history about the NAREB organization. And Richelle, what better way to start is to have a conversation with you, the founder of NAREB Twin City chapter, to talk about the history of NAREB. And so can you provide our listeners with the history of NAREB, how it came about, how you started this thing?
Yes, my favorite story to tell. So thank you, first of all, Kim, for being here and for being the chair now. I appreciate it. And it's so fun just to see where we are from starting this 7 years ago to being able to do a podcast now, to be able to share this information that it lives online. Super exciting. So I started off, I actually heard, Gabe, if you could put that, the stats up. I actually heard on KMOJ 2015, they were talking about the home ownership gap in Minnesota, and we have the largest home ownership gap in the country. This is the stats for now. It's basically the same as it was in 2015. So I heard Nika Constantino talking on KMOJ about that. And my first thought was, that's not accurate. They're lying. First thought, they're lying. I own a house. Everybody I know owns a house. Like, how could this be the case? But I heard it and it made me angry. And I wasn't in real estate at the time. I was a stay-at-home mom in the suburbs with 2 kids.
Oh, okay.
But angry nonetheless. And so I had just recently got my real estate license. I was at a real estate meeting at SPAR, the St. Paul Association of Realtors. And Johnny Lee was there, Another, I think he's a realtor and he's in title. And he was talking about ARIA. And ARIA is the Asian Real Estate Association.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me about it, and he was telling me that NAREB is what is the equivalent for the Black community, that it was a trade organization, and that I should look it up if I wanted to look into starting a chapter here. So I'm angry, and now I have some direction. So I did that. I looked it up, found out what NAREB was, when it was established. Because I was new to real estate, I really didn't know anybody to go to. So I started off with Mike Spicer, was a broker in the Twin Cities for a long time, had his own brokerage. I reached out to him and said, here's the situation, here's what I want to do. What do you think? And he was familiar with NAREB. He had been to a national convention previously and had even thought about starting his own chapter, but didn't for a variety of reasons. So he was on board. I asked him who else I should reach out to. He told me to reach out to Julia Israel. Julia Israel has been a realtor and a broker for years. Her and I both got our licenses when we were 18. So I reached out to her, and I just kept going like that. And I had a notebook in my car that I would call somebody and say, here's what I want to do. Are you interested? Would you do this with me? And who else should I call? And I'd get another phone number, and I'd write that down in my book. And I just kept going around and calling whoever I could and asking, would you do this with me? Do you want to participate? So I got a few people together. Charmaine Russell is another person that was really instrumental in helping get started. Nikki Knuckles was helpful in getting started initially. So we had that little crew. And that's how NAREB got started. We started with very little, meeting where we could, and we grew it from there.
That's pretty significant. It sounds like you really just started a movement here in the Twin City area.
We were trying. That's what we tried to do.
Yeah.
And it took a little while, but it snowballed.
And the Twin Cities had never had a NAREB. NAREB's national, but there was never a chapter here in the Twin City area.
Yes. NAREB is national, established in 1947.
Mhm.
So places that had a greater Black population
Right.
had a greater significance for NAREB. And so, yeah, we didn't have one here. So bringing the chapter here was significant. And because we have this huge gap, the idea was if we had more trusted professionals
Mhm.
that look like us to go to when you're trying to get approved for a loan or just when you have questions, that if we had that opportunity, that more people would come and do that. And just in the years of having this, I think that we've shown that that is the case.
Great, great. Quick question for you. So I hear NAREB the members call themselves realtists.
Yes.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about how that name got started, where it came from?
Yes. So by being a member of NAREB, you become a realtist. By being a member of NAR, the National Association of Realtors, you're a realtor. Most people that are practicing real estate are realtors.
Mhm.
However, we were not able to be a part of NAR. In 1947, we were not able to be a part of NAR. And for years later, we weren't able to be realtors.
Mhm.
So that was why Realtist was established, so that we could still sell real estate, have a license, but we had to create our own trade association.
That's pretty significant. I don't know if you guys want to weigh into that, because that's, when I first heard that and found out, it was like, why wouldn't I be a part of this organization, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, Richelle, I just wanted to circle back to your anger, and I would add, for me, when my eyes kind of opened, it was embarrassment, like being a young Black professional in the mortgage business and looking around and realizing, like, hey, I represent something now that hasn't been fair to people that look
Mhm.
like me. And I remember when that kind of dawned on me. And it's crazy because in Minnesota, we get the term Minnesota nice.
Mhm.
We're known for having some of the best colleges and universities and school systems in the country. We've got high paying jobs, again, educated people. You would think that we would be at the top
Mhm.
of Black home ownership, but we're not. And, for me, that was very embarrassing as a Black professional when that came to light.
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah. Trent, do you want to weigh in what you thought of when you first heard of NAREB organization? And
Yeah, I was excited. when I first heard. And I've been in this business for over 20 years and never even heard of NAREB. So not only was I excited, but I was also embarrassed, for somebody who started off as a processor, underwriter, et cetera, and even with the circle of individuals that I worked with, even back in the good old days when we had Emmy and we had some of the CHOA, the cross-cultural homeowners alliance group, we never even heard of NAREB. It never even crossed our path. So when I heard about it, and immediately, I wanted to be in. So again, I was excited about it, but then as I've gotten older and been a part of it, kind of a little embarrassed because we didn't know about it even in the past. So it's you got to give kudos to Richelle and the group and the original team that brought this chapter here and how it's growing today. And it's still exciting, and it's the future is just it's incredible, and it's going to be outstanding.
Definitely. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the idea again of starting it. We were just talking about before we got on of starting things and being in basements. We started off, and our first meeting was at Neon. In like the back room of Neon, because can we just use it, please? Because we don't have any money, pretty please. And watching all of the different people that have stepped in, new to their career in real estate, in any different avenue of real estate, and watching those people be able to come and have some place comfortable to be, to have trusted people that they can ask about how to grow their business and what to do next. I love seeing the huge meetings that we have and the huge events that we have that are consumer facing, to see just what has grown, because I feel like it had very little to do with me and way more to do with everybody else that's come along since.
Right.
It's very exciting.
Well, if you know anything about Black history, we have a way of making things happen.
We do.
We have a way of making innovation and being creative. We have a way, and really thank you for really helping make do the movement and pull this together.
Yeah, and thank you to our sponsors. As Richelle just mentioned, I mean, we went from basically begging for space to now we have very gracious sponsors that are honored to have our meetings there, and that just shows the growth of this chapter over the last few years.
Yeah. You've really grown since. When did you start at the Twin City chapter? In
2015.
15. Okay.
2015.
Okay.
And 2015. And like I said, it snowballed. So thinking about how many people didn't know about NAREB, even within the Twin Cities, for years after, I would talk to people and they'd say, what? I don't know about that. I've never heard of it. And I'm like, we're doing all of these things. How haven't you heard? But it just takes time to allow it to grow organically. And so again, it's fun to see that happen.
Great. Okay. Well, you know what? We're really here to talk about NAREB, and we're here to talk about the past, right? And we're here to talk about the current, and we're here to talk about the future. And we have Trent Bowman here. And Trent Bowman was a past president of the NAREB Twin City chapter. And Trent, what I'd like you to share is the mission of the NAREB organization.
Sure. Thank you. And as an employee of Bremer, our mission is kind of collaborates what NAREB's mission is. Our purpose is to cultivate thriving communities. It's purpose that is closely held by each of the employees, inspired by the immigrant founders that we hold, that we have a strong belief in. But also NAREB is about empowering our communities, to increase home ownership through education, financing, and other resources.
Great.
One of the things that I heard is democracy in housing. And that message is just, it resonates with me, because we need to have democracy in housing. We need to have fair opportunities. We need to be, educated. And as the past president, that was probably one of the things that I tried to hang on to, getting our community credit empowerment. We hear the word literacy all the time, but I always wanted to focus on empowerment, getting our community power, so they understand the power. So that was kind of one of my missions as the former president.
Oh, that's great. Let me ask you a question. What inspired you, Trent, to be a part of NAREB? What inspired you, like your first meeting, and what really grabbed you? What kept you going?
Like I said, it was the first meeting I went to. It was at the off of Lake Street in the Calhoun, and I just seeing all these wonderful people,
These
people,
black people.
yeah,
Let's call it.
that look like me, that was in the
That's
industry,
important. That's important.
I mean, they were, they had the same mission that I had. They wanted the same results. They wanted home ownership for black people. They wanted products and programs. They wanted to educate the community about products and programs. They wanted to dispel the myths, in home ownership in the community. They were, just seeing a group of people, black people, that were furious about the redlining and the covenants and the past and keeping us on the outside. And now we have an organization was being created so we can play in the game. And that's what excited me. We're in the game now, so let's play. And now we're coming to really make a difference. And not only are we coming to make a difference, but we're also coming to educate the community and let them know that home ownership is at your fingertip if you want it. All of these professionals in this organization, they're here to help and support. And that's one of the things that excited me.
Yeah. I can feel that excitement within you, Trent. I think that's a great thing. I think that I got in this business, right, to provide tools and resources to people, right? If people don't have the right tools and resources, they can't do nothing, right? If you're trying to build a house and you don't have a hammer or no nails, right, you can't do much. And I really found that this organization, NAREB, our organization, really provides those tools and resources. So I encourage you, if you don't know anything about NAREB, come find out. Give us a call and we'll be providing you with that information a bit later. Okay? All right?
Absolutely. And Trent, I love that you said we're in the game now. And we always talk about the importance of education, and we term that as learning to play the game. How do we accelerate our skill level so we're the best players on the court, right? We're here now. It's on us to take advantage of that. Let's educate ourselves. Let's seize this opportunity and close this home ownership gap.
Great. So we talked about the past. We talked about the present. Let's talk a little bit about the future of NAREB. That sounds exciting, right? And so here we have Cameron. He's our current president of NAREB Twin City chapter. Let me just ask you a question. What inspired you, Cam, to be a part of NAREB? And also, what was that first meeting like?
Yeah, so, actually for me, it was just being a young mortgage professional. I got into retail mortgage and I was trying to expand my network. I mentioned before I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. So I actually had a manager that was responsible for really pushing me outside my comfort zone. And this is back in the times where, going to these large networking events and meetings, it wasn't really in my wheelhouse. I was a number cruncher. I wanted to sit at the desk and do loan files and work one-on-one. But this individual motivated me and said, hey, go check out this NAREB meeting. And I said, what the hell is NAREB? And I looked into it. And my first thought, to be completely honest, was, okay, she just wants me to go to this because I'm a black loan officer. And that was my ignorance at the time. But I'm thankful to her that I got that motivation to go. And actually, salute to Nikki Wright, Nikki Knuckles, who worked for the same organization at the time, shot me a message and said, hey, I heard you're going to the meeting. And that's kind of how I got in there. That first meeting was interesting and eye-opening for me. So I came in, I sat in the back of the room, it was a very welcoming environment, and I just seen black excellence. There were some other shades in there too, but mainly black excellence. And I remember just hearing the conversations, and the first thing I thought is, I don't have anything to tell these folks. Like, I'm just trying to learn the mortgage game. I barely know that, let alone the advocacy and, the fair housing stuff that they're talking about. But, I learned over the years. I learned and kept coming back, and here we are today, and we're growing this thing together. So these two individuals were in that room as well for my first meeting. So that's kind of how it went. So my inspiration was motivated by my sales leadership team, but at the end of the day, just pursuing people that look like me in the business was something I wanted to see.
Great.
Can I ask a quick question?
You sure can.
Because I love that story. When you came, so you talked about not having been in those environments or stepping into that boardroom. So stepping into that boardroom that's full of black people when you first started, how do you think that shifted your frame of mind around lending, period, about being a loan originator and working in the spaces that you're in? And not to put you on front, but when you first told this story, you mentioned your stature too, walking into spaces.
Yep. So, for in the retail business, I'll talk about the stature too. In the retail business, you use every trick in the book to build relationships. And one of the oldest tricks for a loan officer is to walk into real estate brokerages. Well, when you're, a large, albeit extremely handsome black man, you can't just walk into all white spaces and be invited. So for me to walk into that room and see people that look like me, that were in the business, some on the real estate side, others on the mortgage side, that told me, okay, I have a place to go as a black professional where I can have conversations that I'm not able to have with my sales leadership or peers on my team, because yes, we all have similar struggles with getting business, but my struggle is a little bit different just based on our environment. So when you think about our black home ownership rate, there's not a lot of black homeowners to work with if you look at it that way. So being able to go to that support system and help get different ideas and, build myself up and see people that I could look up to, like, the Trent Bowmans of the world that were already way ahead in their career and kind of took me under their wing. It was a blessing. It was the best decision I made in my mortgage career, for sure.
That's great. That's
And
great.
can I just add, Cameron is a silent giant champion.
Silent killer.
And I remember when he came to the first meeting, and he gradually, every meeting after meeting, he built confidence. I seen his confidence rise. I seen his motivation get stronger. I seen his ability to lead and want to lead. So when I knew when my term was coming to a close, him and I had that conversation, and I said, "Hey, man, you're the future. You're the next president." And I was very proud to be able to pass that torch on to him, and just seeing the job that he's doing. I always like to say, when I took the president, and our sponsorship dollars were like at about $4 or $5 grand, and when I left, we had a little bit more, but this gentleman and his team, has taken it to another level, and he needs to be thanked, and he needs to get his flowers, and why we're here, and keep doing the good work that you're doing, because you are really taking NAREB to probably the vision that Richelle and the original team thought it could be, and now it's no longer a thought. It's a
thing.
And, so keep doing what you're doing.
We still need that building though, but beyond that, yeah, you're doing way more than I really expected.
Thank
Beautiful.
you. And I want to just solidify this to the potential members or the young professionals that are out there. Use my story as motivation. You do not have to be in the know to come to a meeting. Just be your best self, come with the heart to serve, be ready to learn, hear different opinions. And if this work calls you, you're going to have every opportunity to grow within our space. So we didn't all show up as perfectly polished professionals. Right. We're still not. We're still getting better every day. Exactly. We learn from each other. You do not have to be anybody, any specific job role to come check us out. We want to attract those young professionals and give back. I want to be able to hear stories of people that I motivated to come to their first meeting, and now they're doing, bigger and better things, and they've brought the chapter along with them. So come check us out.
For sure.
I love that. And I love the comments that you guys made, because I think that, Cam, you've really elevated the organization. You really, truly have. I'm going to ask a couple comments that you made. You said support system. I thought that was great, because NAREB is a support system. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the field or you're thinking about getting in the field, definitely come check us out, right? Mm-hmm. Come check us out and find out and learn from others that have already walked some of the paths that you may be going down. So another thing that you had mentioned about you said that you came to expand your network. And I just want to stay on that for a moment, because if someone's listening, our listening audience, and thinking, "Oh, I'll come be a part of this because I want to expand my network," I think that's a good thing, but that's really not the priority, right? And I would just like any of you to share, what is really the priority? Is it expanding the network? If somebody wants to be a part of NAREB, is it really expanding their network, or is it more than that?
So part of the thought when it was created was, in my anger, I knew that there were already organizations that were doing the work to close this gap, right? As always is the case. I didn't know those people and I didn't know what they were doing. But the idea was that NAREB would be the center of the spoke of a wheel, right? And the people would have been the individuals that were part of different organizations. The idea being that if we lean into any initiative, any idea, there's power in that. So to be able to have an individual that's a part of their organization, whatever it is, come back to NAREB and say, hey, here's what this organization is doing. Do we want to lean into this? We need more bodies to show up at this, to be present. There was value in that. And that was part of the original idea of NAREB. So when we talk about expanding our network, I think that we can't do any good works in the community without having collaboration and partners. This wouldn't be here if we didn't have you, Kim, that wrote the run. We wouldn't have this if Cameron wasn't here doing the things that we have something to talk about. We wouldn't be here if Trent wasn't here that established the commercial partners that we have. So to be able to network and expand that network, I think that we have to do that if we're going to be serving our community. And if we're going to be serving our community, not in one specific way, but in a holistic way, because we're looking at our community, not just to get them in houses, but to get you in a house, because a house is how you build wealth in this country. That's how we have built wealth historically in this country. It's about not just having the house to build wealth, but how does that actually work? What is equity? How do we save? How do we plan? We won't get Trent start talking about credit, but how do we establish credit? How do we do these things? And so having the network allows you to be able to reach out and solve one person's problem by reaching out to 10 different people to say, I have this individual that has an issue. Can you help? No, who should I call? It's how NAREB was started. NAREB Twin Cities was started by reaching out to individuals. So I think that there is, it's part and parcel of the whole thing. You become a part of it to learn, certainly not bringing information necessarily, but come to learn, come to be open, come to be receptive, come to be around like-minded people, come to be around people that doesn't matter your stature or your deep voice. Nobody cares. We're not looking at you like that. We're not intimidated.
Is that a shot at my voice?
Or maybe
It
mine.
was a very white linebacker whole thing. But so that's the reason, right? It's so yes, networking is a part of it because we can't be successful professionals without that.
Right.
It's also something that we haven't had historically because we haven't had the ability to be a part of these professions, realtors, lenders, working in banks, women or Black people. And so we don't have the networks. We didn't have the networks to be able to talk to other business owners and learn like other communities have. So networking is a part because it helps us get to the end.
Thank you.
And I want to flip the question and just say what you're not coming to do. This is not BNI. No disrespect. You're not coming to track how many deals you got. You're coming with a heart to serve because you're a like-minded professional and you care about this work. It's bigger than, your pipeline and, what your stats are. Do not come into this organization talking about how much business you got. If you're talented and you're good at what you do and you value relationships, yes, you will grow your business, but that's not why you're coming in.
I used to stand up and ask people to leave if that was what they were doing.
Yep, and people that do that, there's no way to hide it. You're gonna come in, you're gonna fizzle out, and that's it. And that's really a shame because we have so much talent out there, and we need this organization only goes as far as our volunteer efforts. And again, yes, we're gonna do business together, but we're serving the community. There's gonna be things that you do that you don't get paid for, but they're just the right thing to do, and they need to be done.
Yes.
Thank you so much, because that's the direction that I was trying to go. I think that if you're trying to build your business, this ain't the place for you, right? If you're about being a part of community and making a difference, then we embrace you, right?
And your business will get built.
Definitely,
Yes.
and the networking opportunities will definitely be there.
Yeah.
So that's really important. Hey, Cam, I want to ask you a question. What things are you currently working on with NAREB?
Yeah, we got a ton of stuff going on. Really since coming in, we've taken a a deeper focus on financial education, specifically homestretch. And what we've done is we've partnered with some great local organizations, some great local nonprofits that have already been doing this educational work in the Black community. And we said, hey, we have the same mission. Let's sponsor these homestretch classes to give that potential Black home buyer that extra motivation to go and learn something, learn from folks that have been in this business for a long time. So I just want to give a quick salute to our nonprofit partners that we're sponsoring Homestretch with. PRG, we've got PPL, Henry Ruckers Group over there, Urban League, and Model City. So thank you so much for collaborating with us.
And we have to give a shout out to the Home Ownership Center.
And the HLC, I know you're gonna plug that in. So the HLC definitely. So great work there. Not only is it focused on consumer education, but we also launched the Train the Trainer, which is our way of developing talent and getting professionals that want to teach homestretch. We train them how to do that. They get to go and hear, Trent and Henry and George give that class, and then they can learn. So we're not just throwing them out to the wolves. We want to make sure we're providing quality education when we're putting people out there. So we've leveraged that to, again, get consumers ready for home ownership, but also get professionals comfortable being in that spotlight and, being able to share their knowledge. So we've got that going on. We're also advocating for 2 different bills right now. The financial literacy bill for high school students. That's a big deal. We want to make sure kids are getting exposed to these conversations and talking about debt, talking about credit before they're adults, and they're making mistakes that we've all made. A kid should not be graduating from high school and learning about finance when they're filling out a student loan application. We need to make sure we're doing a better job of that. I know for a fact I never had any type of financial education outside of, using an expensive calculator. We really couldn't afford to do math problems. Never did that since graduating, but I'm certainly doing taxes. I'm certainly looking at credit card balances. I'm making financing decisions, trying to figure out how to leverage financing. Those are things we need to be talking about. So we're supporting that. We're also supporting the first generation home buyer bill as well to create more opportunities for people of color to buy homes. And that's important when we're talking about closing the wealth gap. Home ownership is really the foundation of that. So those are a couple things we're working on. And then of course, I would be making a terrible mistake to not call out the 2023 Twin Cities Diversity Homeownership Fair. NAREB Twin Cities, in collaboration with the other minority trade organizations, ARIA, the Alliance, and also NAREB, we're bringing together our second edition of that home ownership fair. It's focused on getting you ready to buy a home. So you can come out, you can bring your kids out. We'll have daycare there. We'll have a soccer clinic, but mainly it's to get that education and give you confidence so you can go out and buy a home and have long-term success in home ownership.
When is that happening?
That's May 20th, and that'll be at the New Millennium Academy, which is a Hmong immersion school out there in Brooklyn Center. So It'll be a great day. Come out and check us out.
And are you still looking for sponsors?
We are still looking for sponsors.
Hey, there's still time.
Absolutely. Sponsors, vendors, and volunteers. So all hands on deck.
Okay, most definitely. All right. So, Cam, you just came back from a trip to San Diego.
Correct.
And it was with NAREB. National NAREB had their midwinter conference. Correct. Would you like to share some of your learnings with us?
Absolutely. So I had the pleasure of going out to almost sunny San Diego. The weather was unusual, so I must have brought that with me. But essentially, the national organization, they host 2 big conferences a year. You got your midwinter, which is going to fall in February, and then you've got the bigger annual event that's going to happen in August. So this one, again, was in San Diego. And really the theme, of course, is networking. That's a big part of it. Getting out there and seeing Black excellence on an extreme level, seeing people that are running organizations that have changed the way laws work in their real estate communities back where they come from, just getting that exposure and being able to bounce different ideas on not how to do more transactions. Of course, you'll get some education to build your business, but how do I build my chapter? What can I bring back to grow this mission back in Minnesota? So networking is always a big thing, but the 2 other things that are really eye-opening when you go to these conferences is sacrifice. And when you get out there and you get to hear the past national presidents from way back in the day talk about the things they went through and what they had to do and how they had to finesse just to get their seat at the table, it really makes makes me feel responsible to come back home and put on for that and represent that and keep building and not take a step back, because these folks have put in so much time and energy and just have given their all for the service of the community, specifically the Black community. So sacrifice is a big deal. And again, you're seeing some of these folks, they're in the twilight years, and they get up, they put their suit on, they come out, and they're not gaining anything from it. All they're doing is giving. They're giving back to the young professionals like myself who have traveled. Some folks who can't barely afford to travel, but they made it and they get something out of it and they can go home and grow. So there's that. And then the last theme is just having our house in order. And that's really twofold. That's being a better professional. So whether that's making sure if you're a, self-employed, that you have the right business entity, you're doing your taxes the right way, but it's also on the consumer side when we're talking about financial literacy and the importance of home ownership and credit and different things like that. So it's a wealth of knowledge, and it's always beneficial to go out there. And we always, as a board, push our members to attend that and improve themselves.
Well, that's great. It sounds like it was a great conference. And I take it you guys have been to other conferences in the past years.
Yep, I have.
Most definitely. So as we wrap up, what I'd like to do is let's talk a little bit about the future of NAREB. And what do you see? And Richelle, let's start with you. What do you see the future of NAREB? What is it looking like to you?
A building.
It sounds like brick. I think there's brick and mortar. I'm hearing brick and mortar somewhere.
I've been wanting to buy a building for NAREB since 2015. I'm excited about doing more education for individuals, talking about keeping your house in order. Given any amount of time, I'm going to go off on a tangent about finances and budgeting and business. So making sure that we're creating that opportunity and showing people how to do that, and that it's not difficult, that you don't need to pay somebody to do it. It's just a matter of how you're managing your life. I'd like to see more people doing that for their businesses, for their households, just managing money, planning for the future, and having a way of doing that. And I think that we're doing that in our home ownership events that we do, in the classes that we provide, in doing this podcast now, are all things that are going to take us down that path.
That's great. Knowledge is so important.
Knowledge
if you
is
don't
everything.
know, the thing is, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, and you don't even know what to ask. And we learned that from doing homebuyer consults, that people will say, I don't even know enough to know what I should ask.
Right.
And so giving people that information, yes, allows you to make a clearer future, decide what you want to do, and have it not feel so overwhelming and so out of reach. If you can see people around you that are doing it, and you can have a very clear path of, you don't need to wonder. You don't need to guess. I'll just tell you one step in front of the other.
Yeah. I think NAREB will provide you or point you in the direction where the tools or resources are, right?
Yes.
Because I think that a lot of Blacks are conditioned to rent.
Yes.
Right? They have a history of renting. They're not, their mothers, fathers, grandparents never owned a property.
Yeah.
So they're just conditioned to rent.
Yeah.
I like how you said you make it simple, right?
Make it simple.
Because I think it's hard to own a home, but
Yes.
if you have the right tools and resources, you can do anything.
Yes. When I tell people in the consults that from the time that I always use this weekend, if we write a contract this weekend, you'll be closing 30 days from now. So you'd be closing at the end of March. You'd be moving the end of March. 3% down. People still think that they need 20% down to buy a house. You need 3%.
One of those myths, right? We talk about those myths.
And it's just as easy, or the money that you're putting in can be the same as first, last, and security deposit for rent. But yes, people don't think about it. If it's not in your wheelhouse, if it's not what you do, it's foreign. And so we're trying to simplify that.
Right. No, that's great. Trent Bowman, what do you see in terms of the future of NAREB, or what would you like to see?
I like to see the continued partnerships, building the relationships, the members, the active members that are members now, bring somebody, bring a friend. We can only grow unless we have the numbers. I like to see more participation, from individuals who don't feel they have a platform, but they do have a platform. Cameron can only do so much, and the current board can only do so much. This thing has to turn over every 2 years, right? So we need to have more people get involved with NAREB. These gentlemen and these ladies who started NAREB back in 1947 had a vision, democracy and housing, right?
Mhm.
And in order for us to expand that democracy and housing, we need our brothers and sisters to come out. We need our brothers and sisters to partner and build relationships. We need our nonprofit partners to continue to work with them, to continue to teach the first-time homebuyer classes, to expand on financial empowerment and credit empowerment, managing your money, et cetera, et cetera. That's my vision. That's what I see this young man next to me building. Continue to build this chapter. Build those relationships. So anyone who's listening to the sound of my voice, come to the next all-member meeting. Get involved. We can all be armchair quarterbacks and talk about what NAREB isn't doing. How about getting in the game and come help us do what we need to do to make our founding fathers and mothers proud of this chapter?
Love it, love it, love it. I love that because it takes a village, right? And it takes all of us, and we need to all collaborate and partner to really continue to build up and to continue to elevate NAREB. Our current president, Cam, I'm going to ask you the same question. And what do you see? What is your vision? What do you see the future of NAREB? And then ending that, can you just tell us if a person is wanting to get connected with NAREB, how do they go about doing that?
Definitely. Well, these two, pretty much stole my thunder. That's all amazing stuff. But I would say for us as a chapter, just continuing to strengthen our position as being the voice of the Black home buyer in the Twin Cities, and also the voice of the Black real estate professional in the Twin Cities. We are more established in the professional circle, right? Because they've heard of NAREB now. They work with people that work with us. But on the consumer end, on your everyday person that's not in the business, we want them to hear NAREB and understand, hey, that's for me. They're fighting for me. That's a trusted resource I can go to if I want to get connected with, the right professional to get me into a home. If I need to get connected with the right organization to improve my financial situation, whatever it may be, we want to continue to establish ourselves as being the voice for our community. And, Trent really hit it out the park. The partnerships and aligning with people, but it's really about new talent. Like, how do we grow, and how do we do big and better? We need to get new ideas. We need to give that platform to, the next up and comer, just like the board did for me back in the day. So that's really what it's all about. If you want to check us out, we make it as easy as possible. You can always go to our website, narebtc.com. You can see our full calendar of events we got going on. I would say come to a networking happy hour. They're free. You don't have to know anybody. You don't have to register. Just look at the calendar, figure out where it's at. Come check us out. Bring your coworkers with you, whatever it may be. Show up to our all-member meeting. You're always welcome to come check a few all-member meetings out before you join, so you can get the vibe. Again, I talked about the Diversity Homeownership Fair. Just come check out our events. You can even go to one of those local home stretches, and you'll be able to connect with talented people that represent our chapter. So maybe you can kill two birds with one stone, get your home buyer education on, and do some networking and get involved with NAREB. So there is no shortage of opportunities to participate.
Definitely. I think that's great. And we'll share some information on the diversity fair for people to get connected to that. But in terms of what I'm seeing, the future focus of the organization, I think it's everything that everybody said, right? But I think that, it's about community, right? And it's about the Black community, and it's about the disparities, addressing the disparities. And, the stuff happened a long time ago. And it's not good. Everybody knows it. We don't have to talk about it. But let's talk about the future, right? And I think the future is promising. There's things that NAREB is doing, other organizations are doing, that are partnering together to really try to move the needle on this home ownership thing for Blacks in Minnesota. And I think that home ownership is possible. And I think that NAREB provides those right resources and tools. I think NAREB is a bunch of the subject matter experts, right? And I think that's important. And I think if anybody wants to get connected with the right people, get connected to the subject matter experts in the real estate field. And NAREB is the place to go, right? And the thing is, you don't have to be Black to be a part of NAREB, right? You can be any color, any diversity is welcome. But it's all about promoting home ownership in the Black community.
Yes.
And that's very important.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like, look at our legacy and kind of the stigma of the Black community in Minnesota since George Floyd's murder. There's been a lot of attention. We've got a microscope. So what are we known for nationally? When Black folks from out of state, they used to say, "Oh, I didn't know there was Black folks in Minnesota."
For sure.
And
Right.
then after they seen a Black man get murdered on live television, and we've had some other similar stories, they're like, okay, that's not the place to be if you're a Black individual or you're a Black family. So then you combine that with the home ownership rate. Like, let's take pride in our communities. Let's change this and make this a more equitable place for people of color to live, not just Black folks, but anybody. It shouldn't matter if you're doing the right things, you got your situation in order. You should have a place in this state, and we need to take ownership of that. And again, make sure our house is in order, but also do what we can to pull the rest of the community up as well.
Yeah, it's so much more. And it's a good place to live, and it's still affordable. I think if you look at affordability rates, I mean, it's still an affordable place to live.
Yes.
So I think that's a good thing. All right. So what I want to mention to everybody is this is just the first of many podcasts that we have upcoming. We're going to have some podcasts on market conditions, establishing your credit. Want to get your credit right? You come here. Estate planning, talking about wills and trusts. So, really the main purpose of NAREB and our podcast that we're having is to work to establish wealth. And I think Richelle definitely said that it's about establishing wealth in the Black community. And I think that's very important for NAREB and important that we share that information with the listening audience. So thank you so much for attending, Richelle, Trent, Cameron. We really appreciate you and looking forward to the next podcast.
Yes, I love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.